Hi, it's Nancy with Real Mom Real Solutions. Today I am here with my husband, Nicholas.
Hello, everybody.
And we are going to talk today about communication in your marriage and how to have better communication. So first, we're going to talk about challenges that we had with communication in our marriage. So when we first got married, I had a really hard time communicating with him. I had a hard time, I should say, sharing my feelings, sharing my thoughts and my, anything personal about me. I had a hard time sharing that with him, but he did not. And we were complete opposite in so many ways. Like, I was really social and loved to talk and chat and whatever, but I could not share personal information about me with him. Like, I had a really hard time with that.
I was the opposite.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had watched my mom and dad have a really awesome marriage, very emotionally open with each other, and very loving marriage. And so I had this vision when I got married that that's what I wanted. And so as soon as we were married, I was completely open, shared all my goals, my dreams, my aspirations, and just my love was like the sun shining on you. Anyways.
Yep. And I was very closed up, and I had a hard time sharing. My dad died when I was 7 years old. And so growing up, I didn't see my mom and dad together much, that I remembered. And so I wasn't really close to my mom as far as my personal things. I did fun stuff. I had a great childhood and all that type of stuff, but I just wasn't super close to her in that way. And so I didn't really open up to anybody very easily about myself. And so that was something that I had to learn to do with him. And that's why our first year or two of marriage was kind of difficult, because I was not good at communicating. Anyway, and he kind of had, and he had to earn my trust and earn, anyway, so.
It seems like, everyone I talk to, that the first 2 years of marriage is really the time that you're getting to know each other and getting used to each other and learning about each other. And it's those 2 years are the most challenging. And so hopefully what we talk about today in communication will help those first 2 years be a lot smoother and not so challenging.
Yeah. Yep. So after our first 2 years of marriage, then we actually got to where we was really close to each other, and he was my best friend, and I could tell him anything and vice versa. And everything was going great. And then kind of later on in our life, things got hectic and busy with, just financially and with work, and his dad died, and we had I had a hard time getting pregnant at one point, to where that was kind of a strain on me. There was just a lot of different stress and things that came up in our marriage. And so it kind of brought up a different type of communication that was difficult for us, or at least for me.
We did both sides. We weren't really communicating the stresses that we were going through. I was starting a company around the same time. And, initially, starting a company is one of the craziest things you can ever do. And I would come home and I'd tell Nancy about all the stuff I was dealing with, and it would really stress her out. And, my mom pulled me aside and she says, look, there's going to be stuff that you're dealing with that in doing this business venture that is extremely stressful, and you don't want to put that burden on Nancy, because she can't do anything about it. And she's already got a whole bunch of stuff going on. And so I took her advice, and I kind of just, kept that stuff built up inside me, and didn't really communicate the stress that I was dealing with anybody, and it kind of, surrounded in the other areas too. And so the communication kind of stopped.
So then it was getting to a point where it was actually really getting hard on our marriage. And so I would talk to his sister a lot, because I felt like I had a hard time talking to him. I felt like every time that I would talk to him, he would he was at the point where he would try to just resolve whatever I'd say right off the bat, so I'd start saying something, and, well, if you do this, then it would be different, or if you do this, and he would and so then I felt like, hey, wait, you didn't even hear everything I had to say, and he didn't really seem to listen. And anyway, there was just a lot of communication, and I'm sure it was both ways, but anyway.
Mostly she's right, at least that way. It's not that, but there's no both ways. She's just being nice.
So I would talk to his sister, and I would tell his sister, kind of the way that I felt and what was going on. And so at first she would just kind of try to help me through it, and give me advice. Well, why don't you try saying this to him, and why don't you try doing it this way? And nothing really seemed to be working very well. And so after a while, she ended up talking to him and telling him, hey, Nancy's having a hard time communicating with you, and these are the things that you're doing that's making it hard. Anyways, and it kind of hit him hard, and he did not realize, I guess, what he was doing.
Yep, I had no idea that was happening, and it made me feel really bad that that she was having a hard time talking to me. And so I that night I talked to her and I says that, is it really hard to talk to me? And she told me it was. And I says, I'm so sorry. Like, will you please tell me like exactly what I'm doing that's making it so hard? And so she did. And she told me, she says, I tried to tell you what's going on, and you immediately kind of interrupt me and think you know what I'm going to say and just throw this answer out at me. And I never really get to get this off my chest or deliver the message I want to deliver to you. And so I told her that I felt awful. I could not believe that I had been doing that. And from that point forward, I made a really strong effort to make sure that I listen and let her completely talk, and listen to understand, not listen to respond. So that's a key mistake that people make, is they typically listen to respond, which causes them to cut them off and kind of already think they know what they're going to say. But no, you listen to understand. So, and it works better, right?
Yes.
She likes me better now. She can talk to me a lot better now too.
Yeah, we actually have really good communication now. But it did take there was actually a few years where it was kind of,
We didn't know how to deal
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
yeah.
Don't suffer for years though. That's
Yes.
the thing. That's you learn over. Yeah. Everybody does. Everybody does that. They suffer for too long.
Yep.
So make sure if there's a problem that you take
Address
it up.
it.
Yep, address it. So what I've learned since is that listen to understand goes a long way. And if you don't know how to do that, then listen twice as much as you talk, and you'll get a little bit closer to that.
And sometimes I just want a straight answer, like and you almost need to, even before you, as you start communicating, be like, okay, this time I want you to just listen versus I want you to actually give me a solution. Yeah, but sometimes you just feel like you need to vent and kind of get it all out there. And then, like, okay, now what do you think I should do? Versus just getting an answer right off the bat. And sometimes an answer off the bat is nice. But a lot of times, and most of the time, girls just want to vent first.
Yes.
And get it all out there and make sure you understand every point of it, because you're like, wait, but you don't understand all the way. I don't think you quite understand.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then, yeah. And in the end, they're like, oh yeah, I got it from the beginning. You didn't have to go into all that detail. But, I think we just, I don't know about everybody, but I like to...
Elaborate.
Yes.
Yep. What do they say? A picture's worth 1,000 words, which guys like pictures, but 1,000 words is worth 1,000 words too, and girls like words. At least this one does.
Yep.
So some of the other mistakes that people make that hurt communication in their marriage is complaining. If your spouse is always, really negative and complaining about everything that happens, it makes it not fun to actually talk to them. And so it's really important to be focused on the positive, and rather than complaining, you learn how to communicate how you want things to be. And one of the sayings that we have at my company is that if there's a problem, then you can't come and complain about the problem unless you show up with a solution. So you say, hey, this really isn't working, but I think we can resolve it by doing these things. And most of the time in a relationship, people don't actually have a solution figured out when they're complaining about something. And it's interesting because, this couple that we're familiar with, this gal was complaining to her husband, and she's just like, my marriage isn't what I wanted it to be. And the husband says, well, what did you want it to be? And she says, I don't know. And he's like, well, if you don't know what you want our marriage to be, I definitely don't know what you want it to be. And so let's figure out what we want it to be, so that we can both be on the same page and actually make that happen. And after they had that conversation, then she just sat down and she decided, this is what I want my marriage to be like, communicated with her husband, and they're actually doing a lot better after they knew what they wanted.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people, and I don't know if it's necessarily always girls, honestly, I think it's probably different in every situation, but...
It's both sides, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Guys do just as many crazy stuff.
Yeah, and actually that's true. I heard somebody the other day at the gym. I was working out, and some guy was talking to his buddy, and he was complaining about his wife like the entire time. Oh, my wife did this, my wife did this, my wife did this, and I was thinking, wow, that wouldn't be very fun to be your wife.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we have our kids do, because they'll come and they'll have challenges in their marriage, and we tell them, before you can complain about something your spouse did, you have to tell us 3 things that they did that you really liked and appreciated. And they stop complaining a lot
Yeah,
more.
a lot of times then they'll want to complain about something, and they'll start giving us the positive things, and they'll be like, "Wow, I'm really lucky. I actually, yeah,
Guess
I
it's
think
not
we're
that.
doing okay."
Guess
You
it's not
know?
that big of a deal, is it?
Yeah.
One of the worst mistakes that you could ever make on both sides is when somebody goes out of their way to, to share their feelings or open up, and they get punished for it. I mean, that's the complete opposite of what what needs to happen. Anyways, and what does the punishment look like? Maybe they get ridiculed. They're told they're stupid, or they're made fun of, or whatever. You don't ever want to punish your spouse when they do something and put forth a lot of effort that's special and open up and share their feelings or a childhood memory. You never want to sit there and you want to cherish those things and appreciate them.
And another thing too is like sharing personal information about your spouse. A lot of times too,
Privacy.
some things are not that big of a deal to one person that is to another person. So there was actually one time when Nick shared some information about me with someone that to me was really, really personal. And like I had a hard time even telling him that. But to him, he thought, oh, that's not a big deal, And so he told someone about it. And then afterward, like it broke my heart, and I was like, I can't believe you would just share that with somebody else. And he's like, well, it's not that big of a deal. But to me, it was like, it was really personal, and it made me feel really bad. Anyways, and so then after that, he actually was way more careful on sharing like personal things. But I think a lot of times, like one person just doesn't realize what's like, it's not as big of a deal to them as it is the other person. So you just have to be careful, I guess.
Yeah, and those mistakes you make really early in your marriage, and you learn pretty fast what they really don't want to be talked about and what they do. Anyways, and so, but yeah, respecting their privacy is really important. Another big mistake that happens is if somebody, well, we don't have this problem, but in other relationships we've seen this happen, where either the husband or the wife will make a mistake and they won't apologize to their spouse, and the spouse has hurt feelings, and it just festers like an open sore, and they're just kind of go back and forth in anger, wanting an apology, or them to at least acknowledge that they did something wrong, and that creates a tremendous amount of tension. And so whenever you guys make a mistake, or even if you get in a disagreement and you feel like that you're right, it's not worth that open sore and that tension. And just bite the bullet and apologize. Sometimes you're in the right and you apologize. Most of the time you're in the wrong and you apologize. What's interesting is a lot of times both people are right.
Yeah, yeah, and really it doesn't matter who is right.
Right.
But one thing that I have noticed is a lot of times people will apologize, and this has even happened with us, where they'll apologize, but they apologize and say, "Yeah, I'm really sorry I did that, but I did it because of this."
They justify
and they
their
justify
behavior.
and so then it's like, no, that is not an apology. That the whole sorry part just went out the window.
Yep.
Like that is not an apology. You can't justify why you did it when you apologize.
It's like saying, "I'm really sorry, you're stupid." It doesn't work. So,
Yeah. So just realize that's not an apology. If you said, "I'm sorry, but," no, you didn't apologize.
yes, just let it go. Yeah, yes, let it go. So now we're going to talk about how do you deal with things that are happening that are bothering you that you don't want to happen. And it was interesting because we talked earlier about how Nancy had a hard time communicating with me, and we were having a discussion, and she's like, well, if I would have came up to you and says, you're hard to talk to, that at the time it really wouldn't have
Fix the problem.
fixed the problem.
Yeah. He would have been like, "What? No, I'm.
Yeah,
What,
why am I not hard to talk to? You don't even try to talk to me.
Yeah, you don't even try. What do you
Right.
mean? You haven't even given me a chance."
Right. And so we kind of did a root cause, and went deeper into what Nancy was really trying to say. And really what she was trying to say was that I have a hard time being able to tell you how I feel, because while I'm telling you, then you interrupt me because you think you know what I'm going to say. And I would really like for you to please wait before you speak and allow me to say everything that I want to say. And then when I'm done, then you can give me a response. And so that's a lot different than you're hard to talk to. Very deep and deliberate in explaining exactly what's happening, and it's not an attack. You're hard to talk to can come across as an attack, but her saying, I feel, or her saying that I have a hard time telling you how I feel is not an attack. So, anyways, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's perceived a lot different.
The way that you word things and not using trigger words, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, like if you know something's going to trigger your spouse, then you avoid those trigger words and you just be, I guess, more logical in what you're talking about and kind of set the emotion aside. And sometimes that might not work still. And sometimes trying to address some kind of a problem in a face-to-face verbal setting doesn't work very good. And if that's happening, then I highly suggest writing the things out into a letter, and then maybe leaving the note on their pillow or something like that, where they get to read it and you're able to express all of your feelings and all of the things again, hopefully with a solution of how it can be remedied in that letter, so that you can get all your points across without them interrupting you or becoming offended or upset or defensive. I highly recommend against doing it through text, though, because I think that people are a lot, I don't know, I've seen people text pretty nasty things back and forth to each other. No, we don't, we're fine, but yeah, it turns into a boxing match sometimes.
Well, in a text, or a letter, usually you take the time to,
Articulate it.
yeah, and that's the nice thing about doing a letter. A lot of times when you try to have a conversation with your spouse, then you ahead of time you think, this is I want to go over this and this and this and this and this, and then when you're in the heat of the moment, then you forget half of the things, or you get like stuck on one thing, or they interrupt you or whatever, and you never get all your stuff out. But when you're writing a letter, then you sit there and you think about each of the things and you elaborate, and you kind of get all of your feelings out there, I guess, and you have time to think about it. But yeah, when people are just texting back and forth, then a lot of times they just it's a kind of a quick response and they haven't really thought about it.
Emotional response.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very.
Anyways, which basically, you could type up a letter and send it through text, but you don't necessarily have to have an immediate response.
Yeah, letters are really nice though, and it helps it forces you to really sit down and pinpoint really what is it that's causing this, because most of the time, your spouse isn't trying to hurt your feelings. They're not trying to do things that are negative. Most of the time, they don't even know they're doing it, or they really just don't know how to deal with something that's bothering them. And so just make sure that you take the time to really figure it out and come up with that solution.
Yep. Communication really is and it's weird because one person will go and they'll talk to, for example, they'll go talk to their mom and say, this is what he's doing, this is why I don't like it, and whatever. And their mom will be like, oh man, that's true. I don't know why he would do that. And then the same thing, the husband could go to the same person and talk to him, and they would be like, man, I don't know why she's doing that. Like both of them, neither one of them are trying to hurt the other person. Right. They only see their side though. Oh. And so when
most of the time, both of them are right. That's
yeah.
the problem. When they're both right, then what do you do, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's called an undesirable effect. An undesirable effect isn't liked by either side, and so you focus on that problem and not on each other.
Yeah.
Yep. So we talked. Yeah. So we talked a lot about what not to do and how to avoid that. We talked about how do you deal with something negative that you want to fix. But really, the most important part of communication is learning how to communicate, telling each other about yourself, sharing your dreams, your desires, your happiest times in life, some of the challenges that you had, meaningful events, what's your favorite color? And it's funny because I keep forgetting what your favorite color is. I don't know how I do that.
I know, it is actually funny. It's just the other day I said something about my favorite color, and he's like, that's your favorite color? And I was like, yeah, I told you before. And he actually had the same response, probably 3 months ago.
Yeah, yes. My memory's not what it used to be.
It is funny, but stuff like
My
that
hard drive is full.
doesn't bother me anyways. But
So,
I don't care if you know what my favorite color is.
yep. I do care though. So I write stuff down a lot more than I used to. And I have
Yeah,
my calendar.
and honestly, he probably remembered it 15 years ago. I don't know, maybe not.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
But yeah, so just, communicate, share things about yourself. And when your partner is sharing something, it's precious. Protect it. Don't mock it. Don't laugh at it. Let them know that they can trust you and enjoy the fact that they're sharing it. And your marriage is supposed to be an adventure. So everybody, if you married somebody that was exactly like you wouldn't have an adventure, because the adventure comes from experiencing the things that they like and them experience the things that you like. And so, if she wants to go bungee jumping, I wouldn't like to do that, but but it would be an adventure for me for sure. Anyways, but so just know the differences that you have. That's the adventure. And if you just cast those out, you tell your partner that you don't respect them and that you don't care about what they like, and it's not fair. And so make sure that you cherish the things that they like and let them shine the way that they shine.
and even going back and thinking about like talking about each other's childhood, like for example, Christmas traditions. Since we're in Christmas right now, it's like one of our daughters that are married. She was actually just talking to me on the phone the other day, and she was telling me how she was sharing some of those things with her husband and saying, yeah, when we were kids, then we would do this. We'd get a family game every single Christmas, and we'd do the advent calendars, and we'd do the different things. And to him, he's like, wow, we never did any of that stuff, man. You had a fun childhood, and he was anyway. But like just sharing things like that and saying, well, this, let's do these traditions with our family, and then he pulls in his traditions, and then your family has, the best of both worlds and amazing traditions. But anyways, but just learning even little things like that about each other actually makes a really big difference.
Yep.
But
So don't make foolish mistakes that condition your partner not to trust you or communicate with you. Instead, learn how to deal with undesirable effects logically and with solutions together, and do it in a way that doesn't trigger an emotion, where you're focused on what's happening in your mind and your heart, and helping them to understand that, and then having a solution to back it up. And then lastly, make sure that you share who you are and enjoy each other's differences. If your wife likes chick flicks, you better sit through a couple chick flicks with her, and not just make her watch Rambo all the time, because you're gonna miss out on a big piece of who your wife is.
But one thing that I have learned, he's not a chick flick guy, not at all. And we do sit through a lot of Rambo.
Sorry.
But that's okay with me, actually. I was going to say that's kind of one of those things where, you say, okay, my husband isn't really into this, so instead of fighting over it, I go watch it with my friends. Who cares? And my daughters, especially when your kids start getting older, me and some of my older girls that are married will come over and we'll have a girls' night and watch some chick flick, without him.
Which is okay. They
Anyways,
let me know how it went.
Yeah.
So
But every once in a while, it is kind of nice
to share something like that. Huh?
Yep.
Yeah, and I wish I would have shared more. Like, honestly, over the years, and I was very focused on my interests and the things that I wanted to get done, and I'm a very ambitious person, very passionate about the things that I'm working on, and I wish over the years I would have slowed down a lot more, paid more attention to the things that Nancy liked, and enjoyed more of that adventure. And so I think that in us sharing this with you guys, start up at the start of your marriage, try to figure out who your spouse really is, and enjoy her for what she is, and enjoy him for what he is.
But honestly, I didn't actually mind too much. I enjoyed when he was happy. And so, like, if watching Rambo made him happy, I was okay with watching Rambo. But it's weird because my sister is actually the opposite. Like, her husband is more, I guess, like me in that way, to where whatever makes her happy,
He accommodates
makes him
her
happy.
interests more than her own.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Anyway, and so it's not necessarily that always going to be, the guy versus the girl, whatever. Anyways, every relationship is different, and sometimes they both are like no, it's my way. No, it's my way. And those ones probably get a little complicated.
That's that's the big adventure.
Yeah.
So, but Nancy's right. She's actually been a lot more accommodating of my interests than I have of hers. But I think the last, I don't
Probably
know,
5 years.
last 5 years, I think I've been a lot more interested and engaged in trying to
Yes.
make up some of the stuff I missed earlier. So,
But I didn't mind so much.
life's crazy.
Yes.
So,
Well, and it feels like life is so busy. Yeah. Whatever you're doing, as long as you're doing it together, that's what seriously, like, even for my birthdays and stuff like that. What do you want to do? I just want to spend the day with you. Like, as long as you're doing something together, it didn't really matter to me. But
yep.
yeah.
So, all right. So no more fighting, you guys. You guys get along, or else we're going to tell your mothers.
So if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell.
All right. See you guys. Thanks for watching.